So the time has finally come for my Omens of Destruction DLC review. We've got 3 paid lords, 1 free lord, 3 reworks and a whole bunch of units, so let's waste no more time and dive straight in. Let's start off with the free content, and of course we have to talk about the free legendary lord and faction, Arbol the Undefeated. It might be because he's the first lord I played for this DLC, but I think Arbol might just be my favourite of all the 4. His mechanic is simple, yes, but it's also just good clean fun and gives him a unique playstyle that no one else really has access to, especially in Khorne. With his challenges mechanic, you can very easily have a campaign where you have 1 army and at most 2 provinces for full roster access and never have to scale up beyond this. Empire management is extremely minimal, which is what it should be for Khorne. You're playing as a faction of the god of blood and violence. In my opinion, you shouldn't really spend most of your time doing city planning. The bonuses you get from Khorne's favour might not be overly exciting, but they keep you strong and encourage you to keep battling to maintain momentum. There's not that much to it, but he's just good clean fun, so I'm not complaining. This is exactly what I'd like to see out of a free lord. Next up, the Ogre Kingdoms rework, and the Ogres definitely got the most love in these reworks, but that's only because they needed it the most by far. Before they were barely playable, and now they're still a little bit jank, as is any Warhammer 3 faction, but they're a lot better, and no longer just a chore to play. The new movable camps are so much more fun to use, and the meat economy feels a lot more impactful with the new effects, offerings to them all, and option to transfer to camps. Big names are now just collectibles and you can get them all. Why was this not how it was from the start when it is how it is in the lore? I don't know, but we got there in the end. The only thing that's a little bit mid is the bounties, which are still sometimes hard to justify, but better than they were, and in my opinion could easily be fixed by just bumping the numbers up a little bit more. Still, on the whole, a huge improvement, and the new mechanics for greases and scrag are a nice touch to make them feel unique. As for the Khorne rework, Khorne actually got a bunch of changes, but they're more under the hood, so are a lot harder to get excited about. The drawn to destruction mechanic feels a lot better because you can just see the chances and get a 3-turn head start on any ruins, and it just makes the system work a lot better. Both Blood Hosts and Bloodletting are both technically better but almost functionally identical. The Skull Throne is a massive win and leagues better than it was, making skulls a lot more precious to collect. Demons Reforged is a nice mechanic but hardly a game changer the vast majority of the time. One thing I felt was a little bit harsh was Skarbrand's lack of unique mechanics, similar to Kugath. Skulltaker can use everything Skarbrand does, so all that's left that makes him unique is slightly better Blood Hosts. Plus, coming from Greases and Scrag having new unique mechanics, it just felt a little bit harsh to Skarbrand. As for the Greenskin rework, they got the least changes, but that's really because they didn't need that many. Their Wars got new rewards and instantly recruitable units, their Scrap UI is now better, and you can use them all on every unit, which is nice, but a small and expensive change. And that's really it, aside from the individual faction changes, which are mostly numbers, no new mechanics, and not all that exciting, with the exception of Skarsnik getting Stalk Stance, which is nice. They didn't really need many changes, so it is fair enough. It just kinda sucks seeing one of the rework slots go to a faction that didn't really need it. I wouldn't have minded if they wanted Gorbad in-game but left Greenskins alone and reworked someone else who really needed it. Norska, vampire counts. But I understand how that might be difficult to organise or justify to Sonic the Hedgehog. To conclude for the free content, on the whole, it is a little bit mixed. Arbol and the Ogres rework are really good, the Khorne rework is decent, and the Greenskin one is fine but unnecessary. If you're not planning on buying this DLC and are wondering if it's worth coming back, I would say yes if you want to check out the new Ogres, which are really a massive amount better, or if you want to teleport around the map as Arbol and have a bit more of a chill, battle-focused campaign rather than worrying so much about Empire management. If you're a Greenskin fan, maybe it's worth coming back for the Skarsnik changes, but the rest of them are similar enough that you won't really notice too much new. And Khorne, they have some nice changes and you probably will enjoy them, but the only reason to play Skarbrand over Arbol is if you want to try the new Unholy Manifestations, which are better, but not that much better. Overall, I'd probably give this free content this time around a 7 out of 10, and we're talking an actual 7 on IGN 7, which actually means like 4. The content is good, but inconsistent, so it all depends on who you enjoy and who you'd like to play. Moving over to the paid content, and we'll split this into the lords since you can buy them individually before wrapping them up into a package. Let's start with my favourite demonetization risk, Golgi, the Man Muncher. In my opinion, he is the best lord in the DLC by far, and it's not even close. Not only do you get the reworked Ogres, which got the best rework, his mechanic is also the most fun and gives him the most unique playstyle and that he shares with no one else in the game. The contracts are actually a very simple mechanic where someone asks you to fight someone else, so you optionally teleport over and do it until they're happy, and then you pack up and GG go next. You just jump around the map fighting all kinds of different factions and rack up a huge amount of gold and meat. Since you do so much teleporting around, there's no reason to take settlements, so you can rely entirely on camps and use all that meat to build them up in no time and get yourself elite armies on the go. Honestly, he's so simple, but it's just so refreshing to play since you're always going somewhere and fighting someone new every few turns. Now sure, it might be a bit boring if you're going over 100 turns or so, but for a quick, simple campaign, it's great. As for his roster additions, again, he probably has the strongest lineup. His new units both fill gaps in the old roster and are still fun to use, exciting, and look great. The Thunder Tusk is super cool and gives them another artillery monster, which I will never be mad at. The Pigbacks are great to look at and a fantastic line holder that works great with their playstyle. I don't think he's perfect, as AI actions can make contracts extremely difficult to complete, but he is really damn good, so I honestly think he's a 9 out of 10 and worth it for any Ogre or Horde gameplay enjoyer. If you really love Empire Management, he's probably not for you, but other than that, he is great. Next up, we have Skulltaker. As a brief aside, I'm not going to lie, for a good few weeks, I thought Skulltaker was a placeholder name and it'd be called something like Rodney the Skulltaker or whatever, but guess not. I guess he's like Prince or something. Anywho, he's not bad, so let's start with that. Honestly, after so long away, it's nice to be back in the Lustria Bowl, and it's the perfect place for a lord like him. He's right in the middle of a bunch of aggressive factions who are always fighting each other, so he fits right in. The quest for powerful lords to battle is cool and the rewards are really strong, but my main problem is how uninteractive the mechanic is. You simply collect currency by battling the most powerful lords you can find, which makes sense. But you do that anyway like 99% of the time, since chances are the most powerful lord nearby is going to fight you anyway because you're Khorne. And then the rewards are genuinely incredibly strong and make Skulltaker and his army absolutely busted. All you do to unlock them and use them is click unlock, and that's it. Beyond clicking a button, you have no more interaction with this mechanic and not much room for creativity outside of having a stupidly powerful lord. Having some interesting effects in these skulls similar to, say it with me, Grom's Cauldron would have spiced things up and made it a lot more interesting to use. Imagine if instead of attack for your lord, you instead give all of your skull cannons an artillery-based ability, or all of your bloodletters some crazy regen, something to make the faction more fun and interesting instead of just a Giga Lord with monster stats. It might just be my preference, but I can't help how I feel. As for the new units, I'd say is a little bit worse than the Ogres. Khorngors are whatever, and the Bloodspeaker Lords are actually good, but a little bit utility-based. But aside from that, it's hits across the board. We've got strong frontlines damage dealers and big exciting monsters. Nothing to complain about there. All in all, Skulltaker is probably another 7 out of 10. If you really want someone with these mechanics and you enjoy having a one-man army faction leader, then you'll probably find something really cool here. But for me, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more depth and something to make him feel a little bit more unique in the turn-to-turn gameplay. And lastly, Gorbad Ironclaw. Man, more like Gorbad DLC Lord, am I right? I kid. But again, the greenskins have got the short end of the stick here, and he is for sure the worst out of the three, in my opinion, as always. His mechanic is the plans, and all it is some temporary buffs to your army until you reach a dummy high level and make them permanent. Now, you might be wondering, are these buffs some insane abilities or game changers, and that's why they're temporary? Most of the time, no, not even close. It varies from plan to plan, but most of them are just some mid-to-sell buffs for a few turns that focus on a certain unit or type. They're not awful, but they're just not that exciting, and most of the time I just forgot to use them since I had to time when to activate them to get the most value, so I just never did. Unlocking them is also a massive laundry list of arbitrary tasks that just pad out the length of the game. The one thing they have going for them is forcing you to experiment with different army comps to use some of them. However, you could just ignore them since, like I said, they're not all that game changing anyways. Also, his lord effects are just comically bad. I don't know who told someone at CA that leadership aura size is a good thing, but it's not. The greenskins also got the shaft for their units. Their new goblins are ass. Fair enough, something needs to be the bottom of the barrel, but not the most exciting unit to add in a paid DLC. The other infantry units are factually good, but very boring, and the monsters are actually pretty good and cool, can't complain about that. The generic lord and hero are fine, and the bolt thrower throws bolts, so yeah, not all great when all said and done. Gorbad isn't gore terrible, but he's not gore good either. For me, he's like a gore 5 out of gore 10, just pure gore middle of the gore road. So overall, as a package, you have the 3 lords, and one of them is good, and the other 2 range from okay to kinda decent, not the most enticing. If you're not all that into mechanics, you might enjoy this DLC a lot more than me. I like a faction with deeper mechanics that takes tens or even hundreds of turns to see all the nuance of. That's what made mods like the Followers of Nagash so interesting to me. These factions are extremely simple, and after like 15 turns, you know everything that's going to happen with them until the end of the game. Golgit remains fun despite this, which is a testament to how fun his playstyle is, but aside from that, the other 2 are just a little bit dull. The rosters are a little better, and if you're more battle focused, you'll probably like this DLC a lot more. I don't know anything about multiplayer, but I can see the greenskin boring units being a lot more exciting for that sort of thing for the 3% of Total War players who do that and somehow dictate the unit balance for the rest of us, but I digress. So if you think these units look fun and you're not bothered about simple campaigns with simple mechanics, then go for this DLC, you very likely won't be disappointed. However, if you want something more in-depth and unique similar to the Chaos Dwarves level of complexity, you probably don't want to go for the full package at the very least. Golgit is a ton of fun for anyone. Skulltaker might be okay for like one-man armies, but Gorbad is just gore boring, and I promise that's the last one of these jokes, they're getting gore old. So to put it into a sentence, would I recommend the whole DLC? Probably not. This isn't the same sort of fervor that I don't recommend Shadows of Change with, so put down your pitchforks. This is more just thorough indifference to what's been presented. This DLC isn't awful, but it's not that great. It's just fine, and sadly a little bit skippable for me personally. I mean, just look at how short my videos were for the DLC factions. There was just nothing to say, and believe me, if I could milk them to 8 minutes for ad revenue, I would, but there was just not that much going on that needed explaining. So all in all, paid and free coming together, this festive DLC season has left me feeling a little bit mixed. The Ogres are the clear winners here, and the other two are just glad to be remembered. Personally, I'm just glad we have any new Warhammer 3 content, as it's been a very long time since there was something new to talk about outside of the goated modding community. Thank you guys very much. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this DLC? Are you going to be picking it up? If so, are you getting all three or just one of the individual lords? Let me know all of your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. That's all from me though, so like, subscribe, and if you want more Omens of Destruction content, then check out this video all about Golgi and his campaign, aka the best one of the three, in my opinion.